The Damian Lillard trade saga is fully underway at this point, with a new report coming out today that apparently Damian Lillard's agent has been calling front offices that aren't the Miami Heat and warning them not to trade for Damian Lillard. I feel like this whole situation has kind of been overly simplified, and there's a lot more nuance to it than people are kind of treating it like it has. Let's establish some constants with this whole situation right now. Damian Lillard has spent his entire career with Portland, and he's remained loyal in the process of waiting for them to build a true contender around him. The front office has, at best, done a questionable job of building a contender around him. And then the third constant, Damian Lillard signed a supermax contract, a contract that he still has multiple years left on. So with that stage being set, let's talk about where I do and don't think there's criticism warranted, whether it's on the side of the Portland front office or on the side of Damian Lillard and his camp, and ultimately just try to parse through all of this and figure out what's actually going on. Because right now there's a lot of smoke screens getting thrown around, everyone's putting reports out into the media to try and gain leverage, so it's kind of hard to tell what's real and what's not. Requesting a trade from the team that drafted you after spending a good portion of your career there isn't really a new development. That's been going on for a long time. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar requested a trade out of Milwaukee. Kawhi requested a trade from San Antonio. Even Kobe Bryant at one point requested a trade back in 2007. So I really don't have an issue with Damian Lillard requesting a trade after he's given the front office so much time to build a contender around him, and ultimately they haven't been able to do that. And I'm pretty sure most Portland fans aren't mad at Damian Lillard for requesting a trade. I don't think many NBA fans are even mad at him for requesting a trade. Where things get a little bit complicated though is when you throw in the fact that he only wants to go to Miami. And of course the news came out today that his agent was calling other front offices and warning them against trading for Damian Lillard. Now, first of all, based on everything that Damian Lillard has said over the years about not running from the grind and how he wants to put the work in to win a championship, I would be really surprised if he was traded to another team that wasn't Miami and he decided to sit out until he gets traded elsewhere. That just seems really unlikely to me. He doesn't seem like the type of player to hold out just because he didn't get to go to the destination that he wanted to. And the teams that look like they want to trade for Damian Lillard, like Boston and Philly, that are also apparently in the mix to make a trade for him, those are still pretty good teams that are well equipped to make a championship run if they happen to land Dame. My hunch is that all of this stuff about Dame only wanting to play for Miami is just a leverage play from his camp to try and get him there, because that's truly where he wants to play. But I think that Portland's also making leverage plays here, saying that they're testing the market and talking to other teams and seeing what value they can get for him. Is there any obligation between these two parties, Damian Lillard and the Portland front office, to do right by each other? Are there any rules that they actually have to follow? No, absolutely not. This is a basketball trade, and there's rarely any loyalty or decorum when it comes to these things. Both these sides have their own agendas and their own motives, and they're going to do whatever they need to do to facilitate those goals. But the most important question right now is, who has the most leverage in these negotiations? It kind of depends on how you look at it. Dame has plenty of time left on his contract, so Portland probably has no issue just sitting tight and focusing on developing their young talent, because they're in rebuilding mode anyways. If Dame doesn't play, so be it. They're just going to focus on losing as many games as possible so that they can get a top draft pick and continue their rebuilding process. But the problem is, the longer that Portland waits to trade Dame, the lower his value is probably gonna get. Ideally, they'll trade him before the season starts. That's the best case scenario for them. But otherwise, the more time they let tick off the clock, the more their return for him is likely gonna go down. But I genuinely think that both sides can get what they want in this situation. But it's going to be more complicated than just Miami and Portland swapping assets with each other. There's almost certainly going to need to be a third team involved, maybe even a fourth or a fifth team. This is going to be a complicated trade, because on one hand, Miami doesn't want to destroy their depth just to get Damian Lillard, because that kind of defeats the purpose. Yeah, you might get Dame, but if you don't have any depth or any supporting cast, then it doesn't really even matter. But for Portland, they want to make sure that they're actually potentially getting assets going into this future without Damian Lillard so that they can build a team and build out a young core and be in a good position going forward. So the big sticking point right now seems to be with Tyler Herro. He's one of the assets in this hypothetical trade, but Portland probably isn't terribly interested in bringing him on board, considering they just drafted Scoot Henderson as their lead guard, and they already have Anthony Simons and Shaedon Sharpe filling out their backcourt. They don't need another guard, so Tyler Herro doesn't have a ton of value in their eyes. Also, they're going to have to pay their young guys in the future. They've already paid Anthony Simons, but they're probably going to have to pay Sharpe down the line, and they're definitely going to have to pay Scoot down the line. So trading for Tyler Herro just complicates things even more. So with all of this taken into consideration, they need a third team to come along to take on Tyler Herro. And personally, I really struggle to pin down what Tyler Herro's value actually is. Yes, there are teams out there that I'm sure are willing to trade for him, but which teams out there are willing to trade for him while simultaneously offering enough of a return for it to be worthwhile for Portland? Because that's ultimately who you have to please in this situation. But throughout all of this stuff with Damian Lillard and Portland over the years, with Dame allegedly not requesting a trade, but it certainly sounding like he does want to trade, I think this is best in the long run for both of them. Dame is going to have the opportunity to go compete for a championship like he's wanted to for the past X amount of years, and Portland's finally going to be able to enter a real rebuild and start from the ground up and try to build a sustainable contender instead of trying to do patchwork around Damian Lillard. Even if Miami isn't the team that Dame gets traded to, there are still plenty of contenders that look like they want him, and so like I said, it's pretty unlikely for Dame to sit out just because he doesn't get traded to Miami like he wants to. I feel like Boston can put together a pretty competitive package. They've got a ton of draft capital. They can make the contracts work. To a certain extent, it would still likely involve a third team. Even Philly could put together a package. So if Dame's goal is to win a ring, why not give it a shot with those teams, even if they're not Miami? Look at what Kawhi did with Toronto back in 2019. He wanted to go to LA, but instead he got traded to Toronto. Instead of holding out because he only had 1 year left on his contract, he said, all right, let's try to make something happen. And then they went and won a championship. He only had 1 year left on his contract and he still didn't hold out. So why would Dame hold out for multiple years, especially if he gets traded to another team in the Eastern Conference that has title aspirations like Boston or Philly? Now I want to talk about what I think is a very underrated aspect in all of this. It's the fact that the Blazers actually have a pretty interesting future in front of them, assuming that they do get reasonable value for Damian Lillard. I'm incredibly excited to see what they're going to look like in this post-Dame era. Obviously, they have Scoot Henderson, who is an extremely exciting guard prospect. I think he has the potential to become a franchise point guard in the near future, assuming his development goes how people are expecting it to. They already have Anthony Simons, who's shown that he's a prolific scorer, and he's also improved a good amount as a playmaker. And then Shaedon Sharpe is going to be a perfect complement next to these guys, being one of the best athletes in the entire NBA right now. If they make the right moves to go into a full rebuild, I could see 3 to 4 years from now letting Scoot grow alongside Simons and Sharpe. They could become a pretty exciting young team in a relatively short amount of time. Now, of course, they have to make the right moves to make this happen, and they have to make sure that they're developing this talent the right way, but there's a clear path to them to be in a good position down the road. There's an unspoken problem glossing over this entire situation though, and it has to do with the supermax and how it punishes both the team and the player for being loyal to each other. Portland did the right thing offering Dame the supermax, and Dame of course did the right thing accepting it. But that contract undoubtedly made the prospect of building a contender around Damian Lillard infinitely more difficult. Now, don't get me wrong, Portland could have and should have done a better job of building around Dame, but the truth is, that relationship was likely doomed the second the pen hit the paper. Huge thank you to all of my patrons for helping make these videos possible. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe and leave a like. That's the #1 way to support me and help me continue making content. Regardless, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.